Hello, this is Lisa Swain. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be talking about behavioral expectations. And before we get started, there were a few things I thought might be helpful. If you haven't joined us before, we'll just take a quick look at the pyramid model. And then we're going to hear from Michelle Levy about a really wonderful document available on the Connecticut OEC website tied to the early learning and development standards. We're also going to hear from Paquita Jarman-Smith from CERC and hear a little bit about why it's so important to think about culture when we talk about expectations, rules, and everything else we do with children in their early child care setting.
So let's take a look at the pyramid model again. We start with that yellow base, effective workforce, and that's you. And the fact that you're here doing this training means that you are trying to be the most effective caregiver you can. So I applaud you. The blue section is Tier 1. And when it says universal promotion, that means this is for all children. This supports your entire classroom and your families and your coworkers, all the support staff in your program. And now we're getting into the second part of those Tier 1 universal promotions, high quality supportive environments.
This document also includes information that supports Pyramid Model Tier 1 Part 2, where we focus on high-quality supportive environments. When you discuss high-quality supportive environments as a part of Pyramid Model, you'll focus on things such as physical design, environmental cues, schedules and routines, transitions, and promoting engagement during large and small group activities. The document covers areas related to these things as well, so we wanted to again highlight the intersection. Our goal is for you to be able to use a variety of resources and to understand how different resources and trainings you might encounter intersect and complement each other. When you build meaningful curriculum based on the Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards, you are also building nurturing and responsive relationships with children and families and creating high-quality supportive environments. More specifically, as we think about high-quality supportive environments, I wanted to point out that this document includes a section related specifically to environment, materials, and scheduling. You'll be learning a lot of strategies related to the environment, materials, and scheduling in this and other pyramid training and activities. Teachers spend a lot of time being very intentional about the environment. This includes the physical design and layout of the room, the building, outdoor spaces. This document includes some considerations when planning learning centers. It also includes some guidance around selecting materials for an early childhood classroom and things to consider when planning the daily schedule. The information in this document and the more specific strategies you'll learn as a part of the pyramid model training will complement each other.
Environments can be planned to promote social emotional development and prevent challenging behavior, what Reggio Emilia refers to as the third teacher. When children know expectations and are engaged, it can prevent challenging behavior. The environment can be intentionally planned to support peer relationships. This idea is built on relationship building and that you know your children and their specific needs. When children are engaged with materials, a peer or an adult, they're less likely to be distracted, bored, or feel the need to exhibit challenging behavior.
So we have many areas of the environment that you may have considered. We usually think of the physical design and environmental cues letting us know what we're supposed to do in the space. We have our schedules and routines that let us know when we are going to be doing something. And our transitions are a really important time to consider because it's often when we see challenging behavior. We know that promoting engagement during large and small group activities will cut down on challenging behavior. And today we're going to focus on simple rules and expectations and how giving that positive intention and feedback around rules and expectations is what's really going to help children know what they are supposed to be doing. How do we know that children understand what the rules and expectations are?
I'm Paquita Jarman-Smith. I started in early childhood education when my children were young as a home care provider. I then moved on as a teacher, administrator, and now I'm an early childhood consultant at the State Education Resource Center. Thinking and learning about cultures and the benefits of culturally responsive relationships is a critical component of the pyramid model. As we move through this tier, we should always keep in mind the impact that culture has on behavior and our understanding of the behavior and the messages that children are communicating. Culture shapes our values, assumptions, interpretations, conversations, and the actions that we take. It is a powerful lens through which we select and interpret what we observe. This is key to individuals who work with young children. We want to have a cultural lens which is not narrowly defined by our own cultural norms, but which is open to the many different family cultures. Culture impacts how children learn, how they cope, solve problems, and communicate. Think about and consider how some ethnic groups may see problem solving around behavioral challenges as something to be cautious about. They may have had a past experience that they felt was punitive. Consider that they might be the kind of family that solves problems by sharing solutions that will give children clear guidance and skills. For example, in my family, we have our kids practice how to respect elders, how to play together, and ask for a turn in appropriate ways. Some children might be reared to speak, talk, ask questions when they're learning, and then you might have other children who may have been reared to listen, wait, be quiet when they're learning. Think about the different ways that you learn and solve problems and how important it is to be open to diverse perspectives of our students. Those who practice cultural humility work to increase their self-awareness of their own biases and perceptions and engage in lifelong reflection process about how to put aside and learn from families and children. Humility in this sense is not being weak or submissive, but having a sense that one's own knowledge is limited as to what truly is another's culture. If we take this approach, it will help all children and create a positive learning environment. So instead of assuming that most or all of the children should know how to be friends and know how to share and take turns, how to control their anger, etc., let's assume most children don't. And we need to help them learn these skills. Let's always keep in mind that there may be differences in families' and teachers' expectations of children's behaviors. There's some things that you should keep in mind. Most children don't come to school knowing what teachers expect them to do. They need to be taught. Let's also keep in mind that teachers might be unaware of the cultural expectations of the child at home and that there may be differences in the family and the teacher's expectations of children's behavior. And finally, this could be the child's very first experience outside of the home and family, and they have a lot to learn with you. The final area teachers need to consider is related to behavior and learning expectation. Behavior and learning expectations illustrate how children should act. Notice the 3 expectations at the top of the slide. They have colorful pictures and words in Spanish and English. They apply to all children and adults across all settings, for instance, your classrooms, the bathroom, and outdoors. The key is that children need to be taught the behavior and learning expectations of the classroom. Teachers need to think about what expectations they have for children and then consider how they will go about teaching them. When children know what's expected of them, they will engage in positive behaviors. So, what might these expectations mean to preschoolers? Will they be able to understand them? How might cultural differences impact children's understanding, and how would you handle that? Now let's look at the 8 examples of expectations at the lower part of the slide. You'll see respectful, safe, team player, peaceful, polite, responsible, honest, and friendly. They need to be narrowed down to 3, which are developmentally appropriate and relevant. Program-wide expectations are helpful so that all adults and children know what's expected. Ways that you can get started is by polling your staff and families and the children to decide on the top 3 favorites. Then you can go about making your posters for the hallways, outside, in your centers, etc. You can also ask teachers to share what their program or classroom has chosen for expectations in the past or what they would love to see in the future. Make sure that you're including home languages as much as possible and preparing lessons, scripted stories, and other props and games to teach these expectations.
So you've heard about expectations. Now let's talk about classroom rules. Rules help to clarify the expectations for specific settings. They may just apply to a certain setting, such as a playground. So in the slide you just saw, we had an example of 3 expectations: be safe, be kind, be responsible. And if those were your program-wide expectations, your rules in your classroom might be keep your hands safe, use your walking feet, and use your listening ears. But you wouldn't have the same rules for a playground. Perhaps you wouldn't have use your walking feet if there was an area that children could run outside. So when defining your expectations with rules, it's important to remember who, what, and how. Teachers need to use the child's name when speaking to them, be specific about what they want the child to do, and let the child know the appropriate steps that they should be following. And on the next video, you're going to see an example of this in practice.
For children to feel safe and supported in an early childhood setting, they need to know both what to expect and what is expected of them. But how do you decide on the rules? And how do you clearly communicate your expectations to young children?
Our voices are quiet. we said crisscross applesauce.
Adults have to make sure they're letting kids know what they expect them to do and how they expect them to act. And if we're so ready to babble at kids to get them to learn to talk and clap and cheer when a baby's trying to take steps, you would be that invested in getting across to kids what they need to know in order to behave in the way we want them to and expect them to.
Okay, then where do the blocks go? Where do we pile them up? Let's go put them away.
Well, I think it starts early where I will say, okay, I'm going to pick up this, and then when this is put away, we can take out that. If we do this now, then we'll be able to do that later. And so they've seen me do it, and then as they become more capable of doing that, they want to help.
Avery has cracker sticks. She brought them from home. Some of the ways of letting them know what I expect is through positive reinforcement. That was nice of you to ask her, though. I love the way you're doing this. You're such a great helper. Gee, you're so thoughtful. Then they know, oh, I like that. And children want to please. They really do. When you respond to them in that way, you're setting the criteria for them to know that this is what we do. Put your juice on the table and you can come back over here. How's that? Thank you, Claire. Once they realize that this isn't something I should be doing right now, they'll just look at me and they'll wait almost for me to say, should you be doing that? And they know, and they stop, and they stop doing it. So they're really self-regulating by looking at me. Wait, because they know they're going to get a response. The older they get, the more structure I see they like and they need, because that's how they make sense of the world, really, and their environment.
Identify really what are your expectations, and then just to ask yourself why. Why is that the expectation? Is it age appropriate? Is it appropriate to what you know that kid's able to do? And then once you've thought of that, are those expectations realistic for the setting you're asking for them in?
In the infant-toddler classroom, our behavioral expectations are really based around safety. Infants and toddlers climb. That's what they do at this age. So we're teaching them, our table's not for climbing on, and kind of redirecting them. If they're throwing a block, making sure we're providing materials in the classroom where they can throw something. So, blocks are for building, stacking, showing them, let's go use a ball if you want to throw.
The classroom environment is set up in a very purposeful, intentional way to foster as much independence as possible in my classroom. All of the materials that they need for mealtimes are in a special little shelf that's child height so that the children can set the tables. If they drop their cup, they know where to get another one. They don't need teacher support. They can do it on their own. We have a menu available so they know how many they can take, and they help each other with that for the younger children.
We post up a classroom expectations chart that we have in our block area, and every week we try to cover some of the different aspects of the classroom expectations. We also do a buddy system, so one child supports the next child to make good decisions.
So that's a great idea. So keep our legs inside.
We noticed that some of the children hadn't been experienced with the slide. There were some accidents going on outside, so we talked about different rules for each area of the playground.
Yes, Max.
First, we get up the stairs and we slide down to the slide.
Yeah, so walk up the stairs.
And slide down to the slide.
Okay, walk up the stairs.
Do our rules.
And slide down.
When children help to come up with the rules, they definitely own it a lot more. It's in child-appropriate language instead of, the teacher telling you, this is how you're going to do it. They need to understand how to keep
themselves and each other safe in the classroom and how to have the best experience there.
They need to be taught because that's how they learn to regulate themselves.
Kids really do flourish when they know what to expect. So it really is a component of social emotional wellness. It's a way that children can feel at rest in order to devote energy to other things like learning and playing and getting to know another kid.
So, as has been mentioned before, using actual photos of the children in your classroom can be very helpful for them. And you can see that in these visuals. The rules should be posted at children's eye level and positively stated. So in this case, you see in the Library Center, we turn the pages gently. We read books with our eyes, and we share books with our friends. So the teacher should use multiple strategies to ensure each child understands both the individual and classroom behavioral and learning expectations. When you have issues in a center, such as a library, that's when you would consider developing rules for that center with the children. So you can see lots of different children were photographed in the Library Center demonstrating the rules. What are some other areas that you think it might be beneficial to have some specific rules that children help develop?
Children's fascination with rules means that they can and should be involved in creating them.
Thinking and talking about rules helps children think about why rules are necessary and what would be good rules for all. It helps them to think about regulating their own behavior in relationship to the behavior of other children, or what others call self-regulation. When children are engaged in thinking and talking about rules, they're actively involved in the democratic process. The emphasis is not on blind obedience, but on understanding why rules are important for all concerned. Children are more likely to understand the value of rules if they are involved in creating them. They're more likely to follow rules they've had a part in creating because they understand their importance. They're even more likely to remind other children of the rules and to help enforce the rules. For the beginning of the program or year, teachers can conduct group discussions of why rules are important and brainstorm with children what would be good classroom rules. Teachers can use good children's literature, puppets, and other props to read and dramatize helpful and hurtful behaviors. Teachers can then focus on helpful and hurtful behaviors, how they make you feel, and what you should do when they happen. It's important to write children's ideas for rules as they state them, and then review the list with the group. Discuss each rule and why each might be important. Now, once some classroom rules have been established and are written down and posted, then the rules can be referred to when problems occur. When rules get broken, teachers can ask the child who has broken a rule to think about what they have done and what rule they have broken. Teachers can take the child by the hand to the posted rules and help the child find the rule in question and then review why that rule is important. Teachers can ask the child about what they might do next time. It's a long-term process that can't be accomplished in just one group meeting. Rule discussions are ongoing throughout the duration of the early childhood program. But in the long term, children who are engaged in such discussions will advance in their thinking about what it means to be a good citizen and what it means to be respectful toward others.
We visited a classroom to see how one teacher creates rules with her preschool children. The teacher had recently brought a dollhouse to school, and she wanted to engage the children in creating rules for using it.
But I thought we need to decide some rules on how to play with the dollhouse so we respect the dollhouse.
Martin is playing wrongly with it.
How was he playing wrongly with it?
He was banging people up and down.
He was banging on it. I heard some of the problems we had where people were banging on it. I heard that people were pushing around it. Is that a safe way to play and respect the dollhouse?
I didn't do all that.
Well, it doesn't matter who did it. It doesn't matter who did it, but if we have some rules, we'll know how to play over there, won't we? We really work a lot in our classroom on respecting materials. They're not my materials by any means, even though I'm the teacher. They're our materials. It's our classroom. We talk about that a lot. My friend Grace said she thinks a good idea would to say only 2 friends at a time can play in the dollhouse.
Don't understand.
Some friends are learning. You're right. Some friends are learning how many 2 people are.
Alex is.
Yeah, he's learning how many 2 friends.
And I'm learning. I'm learning how to back stuff.
You're learning how to respect things, right? And that's what preschool's for. So Grace said a great idea for one of our rules would be to have 2 friends. And why do you think that's a good idea, Grace? How come? Does anyone else have an idea? Why is it a good idea to have only 2 friends play with the dollhouse at a time?
There'll be 2.
Cole?
So you won't bang on it and fight. Oh.
So people won't fight. Did you feel like when there were too many friends over there, people were fighting around the dollhouse?
And I couldn't hear Grace.
Oh, and when everyone was there, you couldn't hear each other?
No, I was trying to talk to Alyssa, but everybody was too loud.
And it was too loud.
And we have to let somebody talk, 2 friends talk, and then we can hear each other.
I think that is a great reason to say there are 2 friends playing by the dollhouse. So we'll say 2. What does that start with? F. Good job. 2 friends. Oh, you know, I'll put this dot here so we know it's rule number 1. That was good looking though, Langston. 2 friends. Does anyone else have any ideas what kind of rules we should have? Kirsten?
Well, it can be no jumping on the, no, don't make, don't make, hey,
I can't hear Kirsten.
Well, we can make the rule, no, bouncing the toys on the dollhouse.
Okay, no bouncing the toys on the dollhouse. Does anyone have another idea? I think making their own rules is so huge because it gives them so much ownership. Just like I said, I emphasize this is our classroom. Having ownership of the classroom as well as part of that is having ownership of the rules in our classroom and how we treat and respect materials. What kind of hands should we use with the dollhouse?
I'll show you how like 2 days. I'll show you how easy.
Why do you think we should close it?
Because it's almost going to break.
You think it's almost going to break? Well, it's fine.
Miss Kate, look how easy.
Oh, Alyssa is showing us gentle hands.
I can do it too.
They right away, even someone used the terminology, this is fragile, and they understood they need to be careful with it. It was delicate, so they understood the gentle part. Those sound like some really good rules for our dollhouse, I think.
There are several steps to creating classroom rules. We are going to take a look at all of them, and then we will go over them one by one. The first step is to ask the children to think of rules. Next, you combine and edit the rules with the children's input. As children suggest rules, you ask them to tell you why a rule is important and to give an example. If inappropriate rules are suggested, you should explain why they should not be added. You should also suggest adding important rules that children don't mention. Then, after the class meeting, you can rewrite the rules and discuss them with children at the next class meeting. Finally, you should review the rules on the chart throughout the year. When creating class rules, you first ask children for their ideas for rules. Then you write down the children's rules, restating them in a clear way. The rules work best when they cover things that really matter. Too many rules or rules that don't matter too much can be overwhelming. So in step 2, you can help children stick to a few really important rules by combining and editing with the children's permission. Let's think about what this might look like. One child might say, don't tear up the books. Another child might say, don't throw the blocks. And another child might say, put the caps on the markers. After writing those rules down, you might say, it sounds like what you are saying is we need to take good care of our classroom materials. Now, why would you write down rules for preschool children who can't read yet? Research suggests that children can make meaning from print even in the early preschool years. Even though the children are not able to read the rules word for word, they will look at them for clues about what each rule says. This kind of early exposure to print is important for later reading and writing. Now, we want you to practice combining rules children might suggest. We are going to give you a few sets of rules children might suggest. We want you to think about how you might combine them into one.
Activity 4A, Combining Rules. How might you combine these rules into one broader rule? Don't hit. No pinching anybody. No hurting people. One idea might be use gentle hands. Now try combining these ideas into one rule. No throwing blocks. Don't break the crayons. Don't tear up books. One idea might be take care of our things. Now try combining these ideas. Don't call someone a bad name. No teasing people. Don't say, I hate you. One idea might be, say nice things to people. Now try combining the last set. Don't scream and hurt people's ears. No talking too loud during a story. Don't go, ee. One idea might be, use an indoor voice.
During the next step of creating rules, you ask children to explain why each proposed rule is important and to give an example. Research shows that children are more likely to follow rules they understand. So taking time to discuss a rule helps children to understand it and follow it more easily. There might be times when a child can't tell you why a rule is important. That's okay. You can offer ideas or help the child understand why we might not need it as a rule. That brings us to the next step. You need to help children make decisions about what rules are important and what rules are missing. If children do not add a rule about treating peers with kindness, you should suggest that that be added. If a child shares an inappropriate rule, you can just explain why it doesn't work for the class. A child might say, no talking in school. You could respond, if we can't talk in school, how could we play? In the next step, you rewrite the rules and edit and consolidate. Then the rules are put on a chart for posting in the classroom. At the next class meeting, the rules are discussed, and if everyone is in agreement, they are posted in a special spot in the classroom. Teachers use different strategies for presenting the final chart. Some teachers have a conversation about where to post the new chart. Other teachers have children sign their name on the chart using scribble writing or letters in their name to show a sign of agreement. Other teachers have children vote on the new rules and have further conversation if everyone isn't in agreement.
That's just one more wonderful resource from the early childhood education videos at Eastern Connecticut. So you've seen lots of examples of involving the children in the rules and expectations. Here are a few guidelines to always keep in mind. Limit the number of rules to 3 to 5 and involve the children in developing the rules whenever possible. Post the rules visually at children's eye level. Teach the rules systematically. Every day throughout the year, children need to be reminded, and it needs to be stated positively. What do you want children to do? Clearly, concisely. Is it developmentally appropriate? Think about what we're asking them to do. Do children need to sit crisscross applesauce? That can be very uncomfortable for some children. What is our intention? We want them to be safe and not disrupt other children. So can we think of other ways for them to sit to achieve that? And make sure to use visuals as much as possible. And again, photographs of the children can be so helpful. And the last thing, you see the deposits. How do we provide that positive, descriptive feedback, making those deposits, catch them every time they're following the rules, and make a big deal about it, especially if they're new rules and they're learning them. So in the next video, you're going to see the children practicing rules and being very concrete in their practice. So what does it mean to have a quiet voice? What does gentle touching mean? If you're going to be teaching them, they'll need to practice and show you that they understand.
Okay, let's do our classroom rules. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I need some helpers. Let me see. Sean, what's our first classroom rule? We use walking feet. Show me walking feet. Very good. Show me running. Where can you run? Outside. Good job. Diana, what's another classroom rule?
Inside voices.
Inside voices. Say hello really, really loud. Where can you use that voice? Outside. Say hello using your inside voice. Say hello and don't make a Deja, what's another classroom rule?
Gentle touches.
Gentle touches. What would be a gentle touch? A pat on the back. Very good. How about a shaking the hand? Say good morning. Good morning. Or a hug. That's right. Good job. Or hold hands.
Some teachers like to use stop and go behaviors, and there is a really nice new visual for doing this on the challengingbehavior.org website, and you're going to see a video of a teacher demonstrating stop and go behaviors. This is another video that you can see is from the Center on the Social and Emotional Foundations of Early Learning. All of the things from that website are now on challengingbehavior.org, which I'll be showing you in a little bit.
I have a picture of a friend who's running in the classroom, using his feet for running. Guys, is that a stop or is that a go? It's a stop. Can you show me your red side? That's a stop. I see some reds. Very good. That's a stop. I have a friend, and you know what? They want to get through. So what he does is he kicks his friend's leg out of the way. Is kicking a go or is kicking a stop?
It's a stop.
Kicking is a stop. We use our feet for
Walking.
What are go things and what are
Stop things.
What are stop things? Now, I have one other thing I want to do with you.
So as always, we want to assume positive intent. We know that educators are doing the very best they can, and we are so thankful for everyone who is sharing their videos of their teaching practices with us for the purposes of the module trainings. Let's really think about the practices you just saw. Were the rules stated positively, and were they developmentally appropriate? Did they meet the guidelines we've been discussing? What are the strengths of this group activity, and how might you adapt an activity like this for your particular needs? How does this activity actually help children learn the rules? What other materials might you use? How do you think you would modify this activity to support students with different abilities or dual language learners? Did you notice that some children turned the green toward the teacher when they said stop? Remember, children are egocentric, so if they want to say stop, they might be looking at the red and seeing the stop, but not realize that green is on the other side. I've done this similar activity with children and had red on both sides of one and green on both sides of another so that they didn't have that confusion. The other thing is that we want to have many, many more go behaviors than stop behaviors. Remember those deposits, we want to let kids know what they should be doing, not what they shouldn't be doing. So if you're doing the stop and go activity, which is a really nice activity for children, just make sure to have more goes and have the kids help make their own stop and go signs. They love doing that and it gets them way more engaged in the activity. So let's think again about our essential positive messages. What are we trying to convey to children as it applies to expectations, rules, and positive descriptive feedback? If, for example, our expectation for all children and adults is that we want you to treat others with kindness and respect, what would be the concrete actions we would need to do to convey that message? So, for instance, we will treat you with kindness and respect. We will be warm and affectionate towards you. We will hold you, pat your back, and hug you. We will look you in the eye when we're talking to you, and we will speak to you at eye level. We will be gentle with you and remind you to do the same. We will be patient and remember that you are learning how to behave. We will acknowledge and praise your behavior when you are kind to others and tell you specifically what we see. We will make sure to always notice when you are doing wonderful things. We will show appreciation when you're kind to us. We will speak positively to you and tell you what to do instead of what not to do. How do we build that ultra important homeschool connection? It is so much better for the child to have consistency, including similar words used at school and at home. So encourage families to create household rules. Help them make the rules that teach their children what to do, and provide them strategies to use for teaching and reinforcing the rules. There are many resources on challenging behavior to help families do this. Remember, using the same words are so helpful so that all caregivers at school and at home are using similar words. If one teacher says gentle hands and another teacher says soft hands, and then the family member is saying gentle touch, it can get really confusing for children. So having that homeschool communication is so important, even getting down to specific vocabulary. Here are just two of the wonderful resources for families, and they are in several different languages. The Backpack series has so many different one-page resource on every topic that families might come across. Here you see how to give clear directions and help us have a good day. Positive strategies for families. They all can be found on challengingbehavior.org, and they're all for free. So we have talked about one of the elements of the environment. And remember, the environment is a nurturing and supportive space that encourages positive interactions between all children. The environment promotes the engagement of every child, including those children with behavioral challenges. And it's going to help children to know as clearly as possible what the expectations are, what the rules are, and it's going to make the life easier for all of the adults as well. They won't need to repeat themselves. They can concentrate on the positives, and they will eliminate many of the challenging behaviors by doing the things we talked about today. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you again for all that you do for children and families in Connecticut.